Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right. Welcome to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and we have got an amazing show. We got a jam-packed show. We've got a great guest. We have, of course, our regular co-host, Bob Scott, and Debbie Robbins. I've got too many names in my head today. So Debbie Robbins is in the studio with us today. This is really cool.
Excited to be here.
Most of the time she's on Zoom, and so she gets to be in the studio. So that is awesome. And so, and Bob, you're on Zoom with us, and we have a couple of guests. We're going to bring in David Gillette with Accuracy in Media. He'll be on in this next segment, and then we have T.J. Roberts at the end of the show, who's one of the more up and coming state legislators in the state. He's really fun to listen. He's very MAGA. He's very he's ready to put up some really interesting bills, and I'm like, man, this guy's great. I can't
love it.
He'll be governor one day. So anyway, we're going to have him on the show, and I've got a clip as soon as I can get it teed up here is from the governor. Yesterday we were talking about Andy Beshear, right? So Andy Beshear's trying to run for president, and he's out there campaigning left and right.
He is? I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? You didn't know that he's going to be the next Bill Clinton?
Amazing.
That's kind of his whole claim to fame, his reason for living. And so yesterday he went on CNN. Of course, we had this amazing State of the Union address on Monday night or Tuesday night.
Yes.
And of course, everybody knows when that moment when Trump asked everyone to stand if they agree that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let this CNN reporter explain this to Andy and see how Andy responds. Would Andy have stood up at that moment? And guess what Andy does? We'll play this real quick. Come on, computer. You got to go. There we go.
There was this moment during the State of the Union address where the president asked members to show support if they agreed with the statement that the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens and not those in the country illegally. Many Democrats did stay seated for that. Look, it's not typical the opposition party stands and claps for every moment, but on that line, would you have?
The president had a choice last night to speak to the American people or to spar with those in the chamber, to either try to unite our country or further sow division. And that's what he did. Sure, the duty of public safety is critical. It's one I work on every single day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is called a dodge. He did not answer that question. That was a very direct yes or no question. Would you have stood? And he didn't answer. First of all, you notice he just pauses there for kind of like deer in the headlights. Oh my! He knows if he doesn't answer this question right, his campaign is over, right?
Right.
So he knows that. So and guess what? He's like, oh, froze. Okay, what should I say? Just attack Trump. Just attack Trump. That's all we got to do. So that's what he just turned into it. Trump's a bad guy. This could sink his presidential run right here.
I hope it does.
So and I hope exactly. So any thoughts on that, Debbie? Just beyond that.
Well, I'm sure Bob has some thoughts too. But the bottom line is, if you cannot be authentic and you cannot stand up for your nation, shame on you. If he wants to run for anything, really, he needs to change it to audition. There's the Louisville Ballet. You can dance all you want.
Yeah,
but this is about America and about citizens.
Speaking of dancing, he actually did a LGBT event the other day. He spoke at this big national or statewide LGBT event, and of course they had a drag show, right? They had a drag show at that event, But guess what, Bob? I just learned today. I was listening to Lee Watt's program, and Lee said that, and he's reporting that there were children at that drag show event that Andy Beshear spoke at.
How come I am not surprised in the slightest? And this governor, just how he could even think, he can't even govern in our own state, and how he can be president of the United States is absolutely beyond me. He's not a uniter. If you noticed, he tries to pretend that he's some kind of moderate uniting faction, if you will, but he's not. He's a divider more than anything.
Yeah, Governor Mom jeans, but he's really a groomer Bashir, because that's grooming kids.
Oh my goodness, that's the truth.
When you put kids in front of sexualized drag queens, even if they're, I had someone say, well, they're not dancing sexually. It's like, no, that's the fact that they're up there gender bending is assault on that child's innocence, and so it's called grooming, and it's wrong. So groomer Bashir is who he is. Okay, we'll be right back with Accuracy Media to talk about the UK DEI investigation.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and I have, of course, my co-host, Debbie Robbins, and Bob Scott on the line with us as well. And we have a really cool guest right now. We've had this gentleman on before. He's Adam Gillette with Accuracy in Media, and they are doing an amazing investigation on the University of Kentucky. Right? There's a lot of UK, supporters out there, a lot of UK fans. I'm a U of L grad, but still I've got family that went to UK, and it's Kentucky, University of Kentucky. We're Kentuckians here. We should care about the University of Kentucky, even if you're not a big sports fan of their program, like Bob. Bob is. I'm not, but that's okay.
Guilty.
That's okay. That's okay. We can do it. But here, at the end of the day, what happened is the state legislature passed a law that said you cannot push DEI in higher education in the state, and so that so universities are supposed to go through and just redo their just
curriculums,
just their curriculum, and apparently UK didn't, or if they did, they're hiding it. So I'm going to play this clip, and we'll bring in Adam. But this is a undercover hidden camera investigation that Accuracy Media has been doing, and it's amazing work. So let's check it out here.
One of the things we think about what are things going to look like 2 years down the road, 4 years down the road.
Exactly. It's an inclusive learning history. It's like
absolutely.
Okay, so like diversity.
Our history, I was going to say our history department.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm still in the.
This is I was going to say our faculty will be committed.
There we go. Accuracy. Okay, so I'm going to bring in Adam. So Adam, that's one clip of probably about 4 or 5 I've seen just done recently of these hidden camera investigations of people going in and sitting down with a professor at a random department and saying, hey, and you're genius the way you did it, because you have a college-age person sitting down, and they come to the professor with this concern that I'm from this very liberal part of the country, and I'm just concerned about being in this red state, Kentucky, all these haters. And so we want to know if you are going to be like DEI friendly or conscious of my my concerns, and of course they just blow their cover as soon as they do. So it's just genius. So Adam, tell us about this clip here.
Absolutely. This is the 4th investigation from the University of Kentucky, and the bad news is we will be releasing videos from Louisville and other universities across the state. Although I think the University of Kentucky is the worst. Now, the state law prohibiting DEI in higher education was supposed to eliminate all DEI programs and departments, but allow it to stay in the curriculum for accreditation purposes. So it's no surprise that not only do these leftist administrators continue it in the curriculum, but they have also continued the illegal programs simply by changing the job titles. Now, the curriculum mess has been resolved in other states because Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, they changed accreditors so that they no longer require DEI in the curriculum. Kentucky hasn't done that.
Wow. So, and I know you've confronted some administrators about this, and what is their response? I mean, because first of all, a lot of these investigations have been with professors, that are dealing with the students directly. So then
Actually, it's worse than that. They're largely highly paid administrators. Now, we've all long bemoaned leftist faculty in higher education, and don't worry, they're still there. But in the past, I think it's 15 or 20 years, they've created 20 administrative positions for every new faculty position. And nearly all of these highly paid administrators are just taxpayer-funded activists.
Yeah.
That's who the DEI departments are. That's who the LGBTQ departments are. One of them told our investigator that they just changed some of the words because, quote, people are dumb. But what's most alarming is that these administrative radicals are often in the education college.
Wow. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go to Bob. He's our resident UK supporter here. So, Bob, hey, you're alumni, man. Come on.
Let me tell you, I'm not an alumni, but I went to Morehead State. But I've had two children that have graduated from the University of Kentucky, so I have a vested interest in that program. My oldest son is now serving our country in the military. He just graduated last December. It was December a year ago. And Adam, I'll tell you, he told me, because we had obviously a lot of discussions about this, and he said, Dad, they're disguising it. He said they are still doing it, despite it now being the law of the land, certainly as far as Kentucky's concerned. So I guess my question to you, what can we do about this to get this turned around? And let me again say this too. I'm going to echo what Tom said. Your reporting has been absolutely phenomenal, and thank you. As a Kentuckian,
that's right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
You're so kind. Thank you. Now, there are several solutions. One, change your creditors. Join up with Texas and Florida, the Carolinas and Tennessee, and go with creditors that don't require DEI in the curriculum. If you want to talk about controversial topics in the relevant courses, makes sense. You want to talk about communism or fascism in a history class or a philosophy class, fine. But as they tell us, they bake this into every facet of the curriculum. And since there's a carve out for curriculums because of accreditation, they use it as an excuse to push this stuff in math class. The second big solution is to get rid of these massive departments of administrators. It's bloat. They're taxpayer-funded activists. They drive up the cost of tuition, and we're simply funding people who should be working at the Democratic Socialist of America with our tax dollars. And then lastly, anybody caught breaking the law, spending money incorrectly or illegally on DEI should never get a government-funded paycheck again.
Well,
Exactly. I'm sorry. I was listening again. So to recap this, well, first of all, my question is also, why is our Secretary of Education, Mrs. McMahon, not a part of this situation? Maybe I just don't understand. And then again, if I heard you correctly, so could we have our legislators go in and again, crack down on the law and stop? I just stunned me when you said one faculty member and then 20 DEI positions to one faculty member. That's staggering. That's unbelievable. So anyway,
20 administrators overall. They're not all
Right.
DEI activists. Some are LGBTQ activists instead. So there's that.
Okay.
But what they're doing in Ohio as we speak, they had a DEI ban like yours, and they've introduced new legislation to strengthen it. They're doing the same thing in Iowa as well. Kansas's law has a reporting mechanism and actual strong legal consequences for those who break the law. What a noble idea. Consequences for breaking the law. The Kansas law is much weaker, and they use that curriculum carve out to push this nonsense in every facet of education. And again, when you see it in the education colleges, you wonder why you have critical race theory and DEI in kindergarten. It's because these people graduate from those education colleges. Same thing in criminology and sociology. These universities are essentially activist organizations running a med school on the side.
Yeah, well said.
Wow.
So let me ask you this, Adam. So do you feel like it's just the professors on an individual basis that are still trying to work this in just because they're they're passionate about the issue, and it's just, they're maybe doing that in spite of the policies of the university now? Or do you feel like the university is encouraging it, or at the very least just ignoring the enforcement of that? So is it university level, or is it at the professor level? Is the issue.
These institutions are rotten to their core. The faculty is as left-wing as always. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
But now you have this massive class of administrative activists who on most campuses outnumber the faculty. So even if you were a reform-minded university president who wanted to refocus on academia, what a crazy idea, even if that was your goal, you would have not only all the faculty against you, but this massive class of administrators against you. And when we capture one person at a university, you could say, maybe that's one bad apple. But this is the fourth, and there are many more coming at the University of Kentucky. So at this point, you've got to say, either the people doing the hiring are inept, or more likely they're in on it.
Yeah. And basically, Tom and Adam, this is the deep state personified on a local level. The very battle that Trump's trying to weed out, and what they caught a bunch of FBI agents that they just literally fired for doing things under the table and obviously against the law. It's the same thing, wouldn't you say, Adam?
Absolutely. And, the good news is in many states, we get a lot of people fired. We just had another administrator fired at NC State a couple of weeks ago. I think a half dozen administrators have been fired across North Carolina in response to our videos there. That hasn't happened in Kentucky. Some of it, do you want to?
Oh, no, you go ahead. That was the producer dropping a note in my ear.
I'm so sorry. So
no. Go finish your thought now, and I'll ask that question. So.
Well, sure. I mean, a lot of people think DEI is just modern affirmative action. It's much worse than that. DEI is a prism through which they view the world. They define the world as a class of oppressors and oppressed. White people, males, Americans as a whole, we're evil oppressors. Minorities, people in Gaza, they're oppressed. And they define violence against oppressors as merely resistance to oppression. That's how they justify supporting the October 7th terror attack example. Yes. And what we saw most recently, a Rutgers University study found that this DEI prism increases divisiveness and causes people to see racism where it doesn't exist. It pits people against one another. It divides us instead of unite us. That's why it has to go.
Yeah, it's basically just, it all stems from the Frankfurt School, cultural Marxism, basically just a left-wing communist really view of the world. Instead of using class, it uses different groups of people as oppressed and oppressors, and it's just communism. It's all it is at the end of the day. So anyway, Adam, thank you for being on the show. Godspeed, and thank you for helping Kentucky. We need this, and I can't wait to see U of L. I'm an alumni of U of L. I want to see what's going on there and other states, other universities as well. So thanks for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to the program, Kentucky's Voice. We want to appreciate Adam Gillette with Accuracy Media for their amazing work, and how lucky we are to have them focusing on Kentucky like this right now.
Absolutely.
Debbie, it is so cool because we've got a lot of rot in our universities, and to his point, it's from top to bottom. It's just, and unfortunately, our higher education has been taken over by these radical leftists. They've made the march to the institutions that they set out to do 50, 80 years ago, and it's happened. They control it, and it is it's something that's probably the single most dangerous and damaging institution in our country, because it all stems from there. Art, media, everything is influenced and starts at the university level. And so whatever crazy ideas you see in universities that are being pushed, give it 5 years, it's in mainstream.
And sadly, I hate to say, but it's also in Christian universities, Christian colleges. It really is.
It's crazy.
And I just, saw the other day as well in Chicago, young women. Now, this is kind of reversed, but young women or young educators who want to become educators, they're being discriminated against and not allowed to student teach, Tom, in public schools. So we are in a big pickle here, a lot of trouble.
Because they're Christians? Because they're Christians, or because they're women, or what?
Because they're Christians.
Christian women.
Because they're Christians, and they're afraid, God forbid, these wonderful young Christian women would go into school and nurture your children. They're so harmful.
Yeah, just
but yet you can have trans teachers.
Exactly, all you want. I want to remind everybody, if we want to hear your thoughts, yesterday we had a lot of great texts come in. We want to continue to involve you in the program. So 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. Send us your text. Any thoughts on Andy Bashir? Any thoughts on UK, DEI? And if maybe some stories that you may have had with that sort of experience in higher education. And so we want to definitely touch on that. You mentioned this transgender thing a minute ago. There was a great clip here I wanted to play that I found this morning. President Trump in the State of the Union, he brought up the fact that there was a young lady there who ran away from home. She was involved in that transgender lifestyle. Her parents found her, and the authorities wouldn't let the daughter come home because they wouldn't affirm her identity. And people say, well, that's not really happening. That's not really. Let me play you this little clip here. This is an interview with a lady. It's an Epoch Times interview. This is what happened. She's an attorney. This happened to her. I want to play this clip and just get your all's thoughts on this.
Well, it goes back to when I found out that my daughter, who was 13 years old, just starting high school, was secretly socially transitioned at school, meaning that the school started to call my daughter by a male name, use male pronouns. And when I called the school and told them to stop, that next week, Child Protective Services was at my door. The next day, the police. And that was an immediate alert to me that the school wants to know better than wants to parent my child, and that if I didn't follow and call my daughter a boy, that Child Protective Services may come and take my child away. And at the time, I didn't really know how dangerous the situation was. I later learned that parents in Southern California had lost custody of their children because she wouldn't transition her daughter, she wouldn't call her daughter a male, and CPS took her child.
I'm going to stop it there. So people say, well, you're exaggerating, you're a little bit hyperbolic about all this stuff. No, folks, they're coming to take your kids away. All right? This LGBT radical movement is here, and if you don't go along with it, if you don't bow down, but if you don't sacrifice your children to their God, of whatever it is, they will take your kids away. And this is happening right now. And that's why President Trump, I just applaud him for they're highlighting that at the State of the Union, because this is really, really happening. And this is the end result of that ideology. If you don't go along with it, that's it. You lose your children. So, Debbie, I saw you reacting to that.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. I'm sorry, over my dead body.
That's right.
Will you get my child?
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Bottom line.
That's revolutionary stuff. You start taking your kids away, that's it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's
Right.
go. We'll throw down. We got the Second Amendment for a reason. You ain't coming through this door. And that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So, but
We have to stand up. We have to be aware. We have to educate ourselves. We have to speak out. This is
Yes.
our country. This
That's right,
belongs to
Debbie.
us. Preach it, Bob. Help me.
No, I concur 1,000,000%. This isn't an aberration, as to what happened to this mother. She's an attorney and now has become an advocate and a very good one. I know of many, many stories, where this has happened. I know of a story of a father who the mother has, and I think there was a great deal of vindictiveness in what she was doing, but she basically decided, they divorced, that she was going to transition their son to a female. And same exact situation. It happened in California. He tried to do something about it, and basically he lost all parental authority, and she was able to move forward, with that procedure. So, the bottom line is, we are right now, as a country, at a turning point. And fortunately, we have a tremendous president, has put people in. The left is trying to swaggle you into believing the love terminology, in the sense that you have to go along with what they're saying because it's the true thing to do, the way to love. Well, no, we talked about it yesterday. Love is standing up and speaking truth. There are two types of people, genders, if you will, male and female. That's the way God created us.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
And I want to jump in here to say, we had the most amazing man on the planet who went to be with the Lord this year, named Dr. James Dobson. One of the most wonderful books I read when I found out I was pregnant with my son was Bringing Up Boys. He has one called Bringing Up Girls, Bringing Up Boys. How novel is that? But I learned that I want to say this to parents. After the age of 3, your children should never see the opposite sex parent naked. Just so many simple things that he would put in this book that helped us to guide and gear our children towards a fruitful,
Agreed.
beautiful Christian life. I know that sounds, I'm sorry, it's provocative on TV to say that, but really not. Look at the garbage we watch.
No, it's just some real practical stuff.
Yes, because you know what, Tom? Those things profoundly affect their minds.
Really do. Yeah, and everybody that really studies these sort of conditions, the same-sex attractions and all this stuff, it all really comes from some early childhood development issues.
It does.
And people that are really serious and want to know the truth, they dig into this. And it's stuff that we used to know prior to this, the whole issue being politicized.
Right.
But we used to understand that. It's usually, like with young boys, it's usually a lack of a loving male father figure at the very young stages of life. So instead of drawing some identity from the father, and they glom onto the mothers. That's why you get a lot of feminized young men, and they're always missing this male affirmation, which when it comes to adolescence, it becomes sexualized, and it's just if you don't know that's the truth, go just go look at some people that have same-sex attractions in your life and look at their early childhood and that pattern. I mean, it just plays in my life. I've got family members that exactly
right.
No dad, raised in a house with a bunch of girls, and and there we go. So it just is what it is. Hey, I only got 1 minute left. I want to play this clip, and I don't want to change the subject, but this is a great spot that President Trump is putting out, and this is the spot for the midterms, right? And the Democrats made this spot for him. So watch this. Oops, let me start it again because I got it muted. So,
if you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
The Democrats are sitting down.
Democrats all seated.
These people are crazy.
What a spot. That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're going to have T.J. Roberts on this next couple of segments, a great state legislator, and we'll talk more about this. I want to hear your thoughts as well. 5710970. Come back. I'm talking from here.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, we were waiting for T.J. Roberts to jump on with us. You know, he's a busy man, and he's probably at Frankfurt passing another amazing bill, so we hope to have him on here with us in a second. So, but in the meantime, I want to hear your thoughts. We did have a couple of texts come in. Let's see, there's a gentleman that said this is, or a gentleman or lady, I'm not sure which one, but he said, this is why homeschooling is the answer for Christians. My family sacrifices $90,000 a year to survive on just one income. And so, there we go. So I guess it must be a man and his wife, stays at home to homeschool. So, God bless you, sir. Because, listen, the homeschooling kids are the future of this country, honestly, because they're usually the most well-adjusted and they're the smartest. And Debbie, I always had an opinion on this, and I'd love to know your thoughts. I always felt like that we almost make a mistake by sending our kids off to a classroom full of unformed, human beings that they're all. Could be, you could have your kids could be hanging out with some crazy folks, and you just have no control over that situation for 8 hours a day, and so I always thought that was just kind of a dangerous thing to send your kids off to an environment where they're going to be influenced by people that you have no control over, and you're supposed to raise this child, and so I always thought schooling is kind of weird in that, especially when you have a culture that doesn't all agree on the fundamentals anymore, because you have all these families that just they don't care how they raise their kids. They're just a bunch of heathens.
Right.
So you're supposed to send your kid to a classroom of a bunch of heathens, and then they're supposed to come out normal? What are we doing?
Listen, it is a tough deal to be a parent.
Yeah.
I'm very humbled by it and very grateful for it. Thank the Lord for that. But I'll tell you what, I prefer to go back to 200 years ago, 250, 300 years ago. Yeah. I loved that people learned at home, or they were in a small schoolhouse, or whatever the situation is. And like I said, for our son, we sent him to a private school. I'm very grateful for the handful of really good private schools that are Christian oriented, that teach kids about life through the Bible timeline. And we made sure that they shared our morals, our values, our love for God before we sent him off there. But even then, it is just a difficult thing to be a parent, but we are living in a society today where no one agrees. We don't have a foundational
We can't agree
anymore.
with a boy or a girl
because
is.
we all go home like we're going to leave here today. We're all going to get on our phones. We're going to look at different programs.
Bob, Bob, we can't even agree what a girl or a boy is. So how can we how can we have public schools? I'm kind of at that point now. It's like we just need That's why the school choice thing that's happening in Kentucky is amazing, because that's what we need. We need churches to be educating. If you're going to send your kid to a classroom, right? It needs to be at least run by an institution that has a worldview that matches your own.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're just sabotaging the future of your child by sending them to some sort of public school classroom that.
It's critical that we engage. Because not everybody can afford to send their kid to a private school.
That's right.
I get that. I know. I live that. I mean, we were blessed enough that we were able to send our boys to really two great schools. Debbie was talking about one of them in Louisville for a period of time, Highland Latin School. And then when we moved over here to Shelby County, we ended up switching them over to Cornerstone Christian. And we sacrificed, just like that person that had,
and we did too.
We sacrificed, and that person sacrificed, and we I'll say it, we lived paycheck to paycheck to do that, but it was the sacrifice that we felt needed to happen, as far as helping to stabilize our kids, because we just didn't feel comfortable sending them into the public school system, even though we have a lot of friends that are public school teachers. And even though we are seeing, praise God, more and more common folks that are engaging and getting on school boards, which I think is at the root of it is the key.
Yeah.
And getting involved with the parent teachers associations in the schools and engaging. And I'll say this, a lot of, at least in our friends in Shelby County, are Christians. A lot of teachers are Christians. So you're not seeing a lot of that leftist rot that you're going to see in a bigger city, such as Louisville or Lexington, something like that.
And I think regardless of the religious background, if it's Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, most people that really live their faith, they want good morals. They are family people. They want family foundations. Right. They want it right. Now, of course, I prefer it to be Christian. God made the universe. He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. But I don't ever, what I want in the classroom is not to be prohibited of talking about my Savior, my faith, and how that makes a difference. It used to just be common that even if you didn't believe or didn't walk in the Christian walk, you at least tried to live it. You at least tried to have respect for each other. And we are watching that the other night at the State of the Union address, the absolute unbelievable disrespect. I'm still sickened by it, really. I'm so sad and so disappointing. But I want consequences. I want people to stand up and say, no more, enough.
Yeah,
right.
I want that.
Let me change one definition of how we use when we discuss this. I don't like the term public schools. I like the term government schools. These are government schools, right? Because that's what this is. A public school, it's kind of a friendly term. No, these are government-run institutions, and it's okay, maybe 100 years ago, like you said, when we had a common culture, it was still a Christian, Judeo-Christian society by far. I think we could tolerate the public school system. I think it had some value and some level of kind of bringing us together as a culture. But now we have such a bifurcation of values. You can't have a institution like public schools work out well for the average American, and so that's why we need school choice. That's why we need to do homeschooling. Education needs a total revamp, and also you mentioned being able to preach my Christian value or teach my Christian values in school or just profess those. Well, Andy Bashir. He's professing his Christian values every day, right? And so somebody's Christian values are getting preached, and see that, and that's the misnomer too. They say, well, schools are supposed to be secular. We're not supposed to have these sort of religious values. And well, listen, every choice you make on controversial issues comes from an existential worldview, like a religious value system. So the LGBT agenda is a religious worldview because it
Yes.
makes existential claims about what the nature of men and women are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that somebody's religion is going to get taught in a public school system.
Right.
Somebody's religion.
Right.
So the question is whose? And so so if you don't want Christianity taught, then it's some other religion. So that's why I just don't think we can really have public school systems like we once had, because we can't agree on what the fundamental value systems of our country are anymore. And so,
well, I think what I meant to say, I'm just thinking you triggered my thought, is that we were built on Judeo-Christian values. If you go to any government building in Washington, D.C., Scripture is written all over it. All of our laws come from the Ten Commandments.
Right.
And that's why I think universally, regardless of what religion you're a part of, you like those universal values.
That's right.
And you
Yes.
don't like these radical things being taught to our children and destroying their minds and harming them. It's just wrong. And I really appreciate the mom that texted us. What's our number again so they can keep telling us what they think? 502.
Yeah, 502-571-0970.
Yes, I mean, I think
572-571-0970.
homeschooling is wonderful. I had an only child. That's why I didn't do homeschool. So my only other option was to sacrifice and send my son to a private school and to be able to be right there. And I was a very busy volunteer mom right there every single day and paying attention to what was going on. But my kid needed the socialization. But I know that homeschool is amazing. There are some amazing people that do it, great curriculums, including Highlands Latin School, which has a world-renowned curriculum now, Memoria Press, which is phenomenal. So if you want a homeschool out there, look it over.
There we go. It's a great school. Yeah. So we had a text come in that says education is discipleship. And so exactly
Yes.
right.
Yeah, right on the
Basically, that's
money.
what it is.
Yeah.
And then he brought up a good point. The church fought against government schools in the 1880s. And I think what he's saying is a lot of Catholics fought against public schools in the 1880s. Because you know why public schools came about?
No.
It came about because a lot of progressive Protestants were concerned about immigration at the time. And so they thought, well, how are we going to pull all these new Catholic immigrants? They were scared of the Catholics back then. So how are we going to, get all these Catholics to become good Americans? Well, we need to send them to our public school system where we can teach Americanism. And so it was really designed as a propaganda system, right? Now, at that time, you could say it was kind of noble because we do need to bring our country together, and
civics again. We need civics again.
Yeah, assimilation is very important with new immigrants, and so but the Catholics kind of sniffed that out really quickly because who runs this country in the 1880s? A bunch of Protestants, so they're trying to make all our kids Protestants, and so we're not going to do. So then you had the Catholic school movement take off in the 1880s. So he's spot on about that. A lot of the churches fought that public school system because they sniffed that out. We don't want to be we're Catholics. We don't want to be Protestant. Da, da, da. Okay, I get that. And so, anyway, Bob, any comments on any of this stuff?
So. No, that's again right on the money, and I want to thank the person that texted that in. That's a great observation and a true observation, and it really is about we know if you look into Marxist theology, and that's what I'm going to call it, theology, because it is their religion. If you can control the youth, and capture them at the earliest while they're formulating their mindset, then you have a disciple for life, So that's again why it is very important that we as first and foremost as believers in Jesus, but as conservatives, that we stand up and say, no, enough of this. We saw earlier what's going on right now at the state level, at the University of Kentucky. I'm sorry, Tom, there's some bad news coming out, I guess, at Louisville too, with the hiding of DEI and the propaganda that's coming forth there. We've got to get this turned around, folks. And it's not even so much that we're just trying to cram our belief system down somebody's throat, like we've been accused of. No, we just want a fair and open conversation, to happen. And the fact of the matter is we are a nation that was founded upon Judeo-Christian values, pure and simple.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Absolutely.
Well, and we had one more comment. Let me make sure I get this in. I think it was great. It said, can the citizens of Kentucky demand Andy Beshear have a televised debate on the subject of LGBTQ and its effects on uninformed parents and children? Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Some reporter
Good luck.
needs to challenge him on that. It's like, well, yeah,
we'll try.
Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? So, okay, 15
great
seconds.
idea.
Right. And so, also, we're gonna next segment. We couldn't get TJ on with us today. It looks like so. We're gonna talk about this new gas tax that's been repealed in Jefferson County. That's pretty cool. It's going to save us some money. And I wonder who do we have to thank for that? Don't know. We'll find out.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're riffing through a lot of topics here today. And so we were supposed to have TJ Roberts on with us. He just texted us, said he apologized. He had an emergency meeting, so we're going to reschedule him here soon. But, you know, TJ's put up a lot of fun bills here recently. And you know, of course, he was the sponsor of HB1, you know, the school choice thing, which is amazing. Yes. He's had a lot of good immigration bills that he's put up there. And I just really like his style because he's very MAGA. He's very edgy. He's not afraid to put up something that's like, you know, like whatever Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida, he's just going to write that same bill and put it here in Kentucky. And it's just awesome. And, you know, actually, a couple of days ago, he just put a bill in to legalize machine guns in Kentucky, right? And, you know, let's go.
Wow.
Let's go. He's 2A here. You know, I love it. Second Amendment. And so, and you were just saying you just learned how to shoot this past year.
I took my very first class.
Did you? Yeah.
You all would have been very proud of me.
Yeah.
I was so excited to, and I passed. He said if I would have had to take the test that day, I would have passed. You should have seen it.
No, I believe
and
it,
not that I would ever want to have to use a gun, but.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm feeling like I'm in 1875 right now.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, well, you might need it
or
one
1776
day.
and whatever.
And all good Americans should know how to, you know, handle a firearm and not be afraid of it. And actually, women, believe it or not, are usually really good shots because when they're being trained on how to use, they actually listen. They actually listen to the training.
You know what? That's exactly what the instructor said.
A lot of men they've watched too many, you know, gangster rap videos, or they just watch too many westerns. They think they're John Wayne, and they just, I don't need to. I know how to shoot this gun. Give me this thing. Bam, bam, bam. And they're just bad technique. And women are like, well, how do I do this? Oh, okay. And they're actually, you know, they're kind of, you know, they're ready to.
I was
listen,
terrified
you know?
having a weapon in my hand, knowing that I could really hurt somebody and kill them.
Exactly.
But you were exactly right. The guy told us that. He said females usually do the best.
They do the right. Yeah, so at least early on.
Yeah.
He goes,
early on,
because they're learning the technique because they're kind of blank slates. Men are like, we've watched too many war movies. We know how to shoot. What do you mean?
But let me say this for women out there: we could also go bear hunting with the switch if we had to, especially when it comes to our kids.
That's right, Mama Bears. So anyway, so Second Amendment, that's pretty cool. I think the way it's going to work is it's going to allow the legalization of machine guns within Kentucky. From the I don't know. I have to dig into it. When you get him on the show, we'll figure out what he means by this, because I think there's still a federal law you have to abide by, but we'll see. Okay. Also, we want to get back to the gas tax thing. Bob, tell us about this gas tax thing, because we just had this repealed in Jefferson County. So what are we going to save, like 25 cents now per gallon?
Yeah, it's on the average 25 cents. It's been going on since 1995. And Lee Zeldin, of the Environmental Protection Agency, he's the guy that runs it. And of course, every politician and their brothers taking credit for getting it to
Greenberg, Beshear, even Andy Barr. Even Andy Barr's in the mix.
The usual suspects are doing that, but it happened because of a member of the Trump administration.
That's right.
Approving it.
Well, Bob, to your point, it was denied a couple of years ago under the Biden administration, and the same parties appealed for it. Greenberg and whoever else.
Very good point.
Yeah,
yes.
So it proves that good things happen when Trump's in office, and so. And
again, you're not going to hear the normal media, the talking heads, including local, mentioning what you just said. The fact that the Democrats had shot it down before, but credit to Mayor Greenberg. He does not seem to be like a lot of his predecessors that have sat in that office from the same party. But it's a good thing. It's long overdue. Again, it's more money back in the pocketbooks of the local drivers. So long overdue. And again, it was initially put in 1995 with the whole idea of helping with air pollution. But guess what? Combustible engines have changed a little bit in the last 30 years.
That's right.
You're just not seeing that kind of air pollution happening now that you would have seen 30 years ago. So this is a good thing. It's a good thing for Louisville. It's a good thing for Kentucky. It's a good thing for the taxpayers in our area. So that I'm real excited about that. That's huge.
Remember we used to have the vet testing. Remember
yes.
That?
That
was
my
just
goodness.
Just a nightmare. You'd have to every year just take your car through this little thing where they.
And thank you to the wonderful Rebecca Jackson,
Rebecca Jackson. That's right. Yeah, and I think Dan
got
Syme
that taken
as well.
care of.
The Dan Syme, he claimed it as well.
Yes, and Dan Syme,
yeah.
right.
And so we had a lot of good local politicians say, get rid of that. So
Republicans, conservatives, Christians.
That's right. Yeah, and to your point, technology has changed. I mean, back in the 70s, you had 80s, you had some cars, if they got out of tune, they were pretty bad,
Mm-hmm.
But modern cars are so clean the way they run now. It's like, it wasn't necessary anymore. So same thing with this. So folks, another 25 cents a gallon going back in your pocket, thanks to the Trump administration and to some local politicians that made the outreach.
Think about how fast that's going to add up. I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's
right.
Nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Tom. It's honestly, it's a tax break,
my average car is probably 13, 15 gallons. So that's 15 times 25 cents. Let me do the math on that. What is that?
Almost $4.
$4 every time you fill up. And I fill up at least once or twice a week. So that's,
right.
So $4 times, just $24. It's 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, see, public schools, folks here.
Great.
Public schools, all right? This is what you get. You can't do addition.
No,
so it should have been homeschooled. But so $16 or $16 to $32 a month. That's a meal.
That's a meal out.
At least one hamburger. That's one hamburger right now with inflation. So.
No kidding. Or it's going to the movies with your husband.
That's right. There we go.
Tickets are $15 each.
That's right. Or some ammo, or a couple boxes of ammo, which is really good.
Hey.
So,
right.
But anyway, so Bob, we also had a budget pass here recently. We're going to have TJ on to talk about that, and I don't have.
Yeah, it's on the House side so far, and of course, I'm sure everybody knows, or most of our listeners know, that we are required by our Constitution to have a balanced budget. Gee, what a thought! What a concept! And because of that, they tend to be a little bit austere in their predictions. Of course, they've had to subpoena the governor in his office to try to get information out of them so they can put the budget together, which the governor has not been very cooperating. In that, again, big surprise. But it has cleared. It's just the start of a process. It's cleared the House. Now it goes to the Senate. And this is, again, I've talked about it often on this program. It's when the sausage making starts, and that's when they're going to start, negotiating and saying, I like this part of it. I don't like this part of it. I'm going to put this in it. That's going to be going on for the next several weeks until they come up with something that they feel is going to work best for our state. And I got to say this, our state legislature has done a pretty phenomenal job, ever since the Republicans took control of it. So, we are heading in the right direction. And again, as they say, stay tuned. A lot of things are going to need to be covered and dealt with moving forward. And we'll be reporting it here on Kentucky's Voice. I think we're one of the foremost, we are the foremost conservative voice in the state of Kentucky with regard to bringing news that's going to affect you,
Exactly
and that's why it's very important that you stay tuned and support, our programming, because we're out there fighting for you, and our commitment, it really is. And I know this is turning into a little bit of a mini advertisement, but our commitment is bringing you the most up-to-date news we possibly can involving Kentucky and things that are going to affect you ultimately in your pocketbook.
Right. It's like I read and believe, when people say politics doesn't affect me, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Yes, it does. Politics affects everything about your life, everything.
Yeah.
Making choices.
Your line you used the other day, you may not care about politics, but politics cares about you.
Exactly.
Because it cares about your pocketbook, it cares about your kids, it cares about your house, your future.
Well, and let me tell you, it's interesting because Governor Spanberger from Virginia,
oh my goodness,
basically ran as a moderate, and of course she was elected, and she gave the response to Trump's State of the Union, and how rich it is, and what's the first thing she did, by the way?
Raise taxes.
That correct. Yeah. And on everything that you could possibly think of. Yeah. In fact, the list is too long for me to even try to go into, but that's what she's doing. And again, that's what the modern Democratic Party is all about. And that's putting taxation really without representation, on you, even though for the people that voted for her to put her in office. I wish they could just tax the people that voted for her, and leave it at that. But that's not how it works, But that's the point.
They're good with other people's money, aren't they? They're really good with spending other people's money.
They're phenomenal. There's nobody
let me go back to your point
spending
earlier.
other people's money except their own.
Yeah,
yes.
let me go back
Well,
to
and I'm concerned about the governor not telling us about what he needs. He's just given them a number without any explanation.
Right.
No sheet.
Unbelievable.
So,
Well,
right.
Unbelievable.
He's going to have a lot to answer for.
But not really unbelievable, because that is this current administration.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to have a lot to answer for too. There's some investigations on where he's spending money and some of his transparency issues. So we'll see what happens with that. Andrew Cooperrider, one of our other hosts, has been doing some great work on that. So look for some stuff coming out on Andy that's not real pretty. So we're going to see how that shakes out. Let me back to your point about Kentucky's Voice. What we're doing here. One other thing I want to add to this. Obviously, we need your support. We're glad you watch. We're glad you stay informed. But our number one goal with this project is to be sort of an activist platform, right? We want people that listen to the show to be more than just listening to it from a cathartic level, because a lot of conservatives will listen to conservative, media just to kind of, process our own emotions about what's happening in the world, because it's so much change, so much drama, and it's like we just listen for, like I said, for catharsis. And we want to go be one step beyond that. Yeah, fine. You want to hear other people's voices that are similar to yours. But we also want you to make the phone calls and actually help make that we can fight. We can fight this battle and we can win. And we're a red state. We have power in our legislature. We got to push those guys to do the right thing, because sometimes they want to be very safe and when they have that power. But But so here's something we need to do right now. We need to call them and encourage them to go ahead and pass that HB1 House bill, the school choice bill, in the Senate. Because right now the Democrats are pulling out all stops to try to stop that. So they need, or your senator needs to hear from you. Your state senator needs to hear from you on that bill. And so call right now. We need school choice. That's the biggest long-term fix to our country's problems is to get
it is.
Get
and
the
may I
left
jump in and just say,
kids.
if we're not breaking it down for them to tell us better how we can break it down, but I think we're really going after it.
I think we've done a pretty good job.
But we sure appreciate your help and your comments, and thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Kentucky's Voice.